Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, I-Man.
What's going on, dude?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right, it's been 2 weeks.
We took a week off, didn't we?
We did.
Damn, when's the last time we done that? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been at least a couple of years, I think.
Holy shit. Well,
yeah.
I think that it's okay. I think we'll survive an off week. But it was much needed, right, to kind of accelerate this development process we've been going through.
Yeah, and it wasn't really intentional or planned to not record. It was just how the chips fell.
Well, I think, because I think we were intending to launch last week.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
During one of our recording time frames. It was like, so can't do that. But then things, I guess, didn't fully line up, right?
Yeah, so as of this recording, we haven't launched yet. And so we're literally like inches away from pushing the button.
Yes.
Like inches.
So then it's basically a repeat of last week, but this week we decided to record anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically. Because, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to kind of capture the pre-launch aura, whatever it is. I don't know. Do you feel any butterflies? Do you feel anything right now?
No.
Not a thing, dude.
Well, I'm taking it from the perspective of like a science experiment. And so I think what we should do is just make some predictions. Okay. But first talk about like the thesis as to why this exists. Mm-hmm. And then we'll make some predictions if the thesis turns out to be true.
Yeah. For me, I feel a lot of things in my gut right now. It could be, related or not related to the launch. Just my gut biome could be out of whack. I don't know. But it feels a little bit like anxiety, right? Because this isn't our first rodeo, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
We've done this before, but I don't think we've ever dedicated this much energy into the launch of something. Like, not even close. Like, this far outweighs everything we've done so far. So,
from a complexity standpoint, it blows everything out of the water.
Exactly. So, complexity means, a lot of moving parts, right?
100%.
So there's a lot of things to keep track of, and it's just like, it weighs on you a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's also this massive feeling of impending relief.
Yeah, so I think the complexity increased not because we wanted it to, but there's a combination of it had to be complex, but also we were enabled to be complexed through AI.
Yeah, thank goodness, right? Because, I was talking about that. It's like, this still took us a very long time to do. It's like...
Yeah, most of that time was coding it without AI, though. Like, I would say 70% of that time was without AI.
Probably, yeah. But still, even with the AI. So I was like, okay, consider whenever the AI became like the mode of operation. I don't know, 6-7 months ago or something.
Yeah.
To now, it's like, what would the final product look like, without AI?
Without AI.
Under that time frame, it'd be much more stripped down for sure.
It would be stripped down. It'd be much closer to like just a very base level MVP, where you're risking the balance of an MVP not matching a product market fit. But like the car moves, right? But it isn't a very good car or a fast car.
Yeah, that is one thing I noticed from you guys as you were building out this product. You definitely had more emphasis and focus on polish than usual. And I think a little bit of that came from like the fact that you have AI.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, it's like, because we can and it's so quick to do, it's like, why not, right?
Yeah. So we did a bunch of security audits on it, like several times. And it found a bunch of things, and we kept fixing it. And we run it again, found other things, and we just kept running, and that's what caused many of the most recent delays. Yeah.
I mean, so that's a new thing, and that's pretty cool. So that helps my gut settle a little bit, right?
100%.
The fact that I know this thing has been like already passed through like a rigorous gauntlet.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. It's like if an audit if you run an audit and it doesn't find anything, you can sleep pretty comfortably.
And we've done that.
We've done that, yes.
Yeah. It took a while, though.
It did take a while. it got to the point where it's like maybe there's like diminishing returns where it's supposed to find something, even if there's nothing.
Right.
But eventually we got it to the point where it found almost practically nothing. And the stuff that it finds are just negligible.
Okay. Interesting. Well, yeah. So it's a mix of emotions for sure. Yeah. It's like a little bit of anxiety because this is such a complex beast. And like you're saying, I don't think we originally knew how much of a beast this was going to be when we started it like a year ago or a year.
Yeah, we were planning on building the whole thing ourselves because there wasn't a lot of technology to do it. And it's funny looking back at that moment. We were like, yeah, we could do this. And we knew it was hard, but we didn't really know it would be, this difficult.
Yeah, but it makes sense, right? And so we look at this list here of like top 25 companies in Web3. That's what this is, right?
Yeah, so it says
35.
This tweet says only 35 protocols have cleared $2 million in monthly revenue last month.
Right.
So this was posted a few days ago. Here are the top 25 by revenue.
Okay, 25. Yeah.
Number 1 and number 2 is Tether and Circle with $476 million in 1 month.
Stable coins, basically.
Yeah, and Circle was $191 million in a month. So all this money just comes from the yield from bonds.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know if I would consider this like on the complexity scale very complex. Maybe
I think from a regulatory standpoint, it's it's the most complex.
Yeah, it's a different degree of complexity. It's not like a technical complexity.
Right.
It's something else. But I think that's should be a common theme once you kind of like go through all these. It's like
there's some complexity in all of these.
Right. So it's kind of like it's a prerequisite here, right? If you're trying to achieve anything of like notable scale, like this is pretty notable.
I totally agree.
These are just some great monthly revenue figures.
I would say, and I'm being hyperbolic here, but I would say that it's Bitcoin, Tether, and Circle. Those are the only ones who found major product market fits in crypto, like full scale product market fits. Mm-hmm. And these other ones, they generate some revenue, but they're not at the same tier.
Yeah, I guess what's the differentiator here? It's like you're not so certain like all these other companies on this list will be here in 10 years, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, it's like Tether and Circle. They have some risks, but they're playing along with the governments, right? So they're less likely to have any risks long term. Hyperliquid derivatives, that's sort of a long-standing, piece of financial technology. So they could be around. That's why they're generating $48 million a month.
Yeah, it's clearly the chosen platform for, like high-intensity traders. I've never used it myself. I've attempted to use it, but it's just not a product for me. Like I just do not dedicate enough mental bandwidth to like trading anymore these days. Right? But if I were, I understand. I get it, right? Yeah.
You're basically multiplying the percentages with Hyperliquid.
Yeah.
So it's like if it goes up 1% at a 10x leverage, it goes up 10%.
Yeah, it's trading on steroids basically.
Yeah.
Or on peptides. A combination of the two.
Yeah.
That's Hyperliquid, and it just now flipped Solana in fully diluted FDV.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like literally just now, like an hour ago.
Hyperliquid
flipped Solana in FDV.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
How much is that?
It's like 52 million or
52 billion?
Yeah, 52 billion.
Right, Solana's only worth 52 billion?
Correctamundo.
And it's the top 7?
54. Yeah, here it is. So this is FDV, right? So Solana is still a higher rank.
I see.
But not according to FDV.
Man, Hyperliquid is top 11, dude.
Yeah, I know. They came out of nowhere, dude.
Wow.
So this is an example of complexity-wise, that's a pretty complex product.
I would agree.
Yeah, so they put a lot of attention into their engineering as well. And they rolled out a very good product, and they achieved product market fit, right? And they're being rewarded. The market rewards you for such efforts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a little bit of the relief in my mind, is like finding out if that's actually going to finally play out or not in our situation, right? It's like we put a lot of energy and focus into the engineering of this platform. It's more so just getting it out there so that we can finally know.
Yeah,
if the market even wants this or not.
correct.
That's the relief I want out of my head, dude.
Yeah, that's how you're able to sleep at night, because you can't sleep if you don't know.
I know it's been a year of not knowing.
Yeah.
like fuck, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, everybody goes through this, I think, when you're building a product, right?
Yeah, because you really have to believe in what you're building if you're going to spend any meaningful amount of time on it. And
Yeah.
there's a big gap between belief and like knowing.
Right.
And like that's the chasm we're trying to cross here.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, so next is Pump.Fun at $33 million in a month.
Mm-hmm.
So this is this is another complex platform because they were the first one to build the combination of a bonding curve and bootstrapping liquidity, and like they solved a big problem in crypto in terms of not having to raise funds to launch a token. Like that's typically what you needed to do in order to have a liquid token.
Correct.
And
yeah,
that had
so-
all kinds of like baggage associated with it, with like
Yeah.
manipulations and all kinds of stuff.
100%. Yeah, typically the only way to efficiently, conduct a token launch or TGE was through VC rails, right? Meaning you had to get, selective parties involved, raise some funds, and then go through like all the centralized exchange listing processes.
The gauntlet.
Yeah.
The briefcases, you have to.
Yeah. So obviously this is a very limited like access of activity, right? And that was the core issues. Like if anybody had a good idea, if you weren't like connected to the industry in any way, you kind of were like shit out of luck, right?
Yeah.
But then now Pump came in and built like a good, liquidity aggregator system that is much more, accessible
Yeah.
and independent of VC involvement. But, there's still other,
Yeah, there's other ways to manipulate these tokens too.
yeah. But
It's
nonetheless, that was a big breakthrough, and it wasn't obvious even to us at first because you look at Pump at face value, like it looks like this completely non-serious thing.
Yeah.
It's like something you should just kind of like,
It looks like it didn't solve like a problem at first glance.
Yeah, to me at first glance, it looked like the market was just bored, right? Because when Pump was coming out, we were heads deep into ordinals
Yeah.
and the Bitcoin ecosystem and stuff like that. And we're like, wow, this sector of the crypto market feels like innovation.
Yes.
'Cause
Ordinals.
it is.
Ordinals.
Ordinals
right,
at the time, right? And then
Yeah.
we're hearing a little bit of noise from the Pump.Fun over there on Solana. It's like,
Yeah.
those guys are just bored.
Yeah. Wait till they find ordinals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know what to do, so they created a meme coin casino, and because there's no other option, they all just like jumped on board
Yeah. And it was making consistent noise.
a lot.
Consistently.
You're like, hey, I'm like, hey, Will, these guys made $500 million in the last 6 months.
It's like fade.
It's like, who cares? Whatever, dude. It's nonsense. And then it just kept on going, right? Kept on going.
Yeah. So then they ended up making $1 billion and then raising $1 billion.
Right. And not conducting their airdrop as promised.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are pissed off at them. But nonetheless, they keep pumping along to the point where there's like dudes like shooting other people on their streams.
I heard.
Chud? What's his name? Chud? Chud something. I don't know. So yeah, that's Pump. So they discovered something as well. And yeah, it's a complex thing. I mean, not just from a technical perspective, but also like, I don't know, like tapping into the cultural nexus of
Yeah.
what consumer crypto actually looks like, right? And that's kind of like a...
Yeah. Consumer crypto has largely leaned on the casino side of things.
Yeah, it's like one of those like inconvenient truths or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
It's like an unfortunate truth.
people don't want to admit that, right? They want to
Yeah.
they want to portray the industry as like this serious financial thing, right? So that it attracts, Wall Street
Yeah.
and big banks and stuff like that. But in reality, the people who actually use crypto, they're just trying to find these new vessels and vehicles to speculate with, right?
Well, it's not only that. I think there's like macro forces that are encouraging this behavior where people are feeling a little bit more, I don't know, like don't have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
And so the only opportunity they have is, well, I have to gamble in order to try to make it.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happens to those swatches or whatever?
Yeah, I did see that.
The APs, or it's like people were criticizing that company. It's like, dude, you just killed your brand
Yeah.
by creating a $400 watch release.
Yeah.
When everybody, there's supposed to be $100,000 minimum or something like that for a watch like that.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be like this huge hit. I think it looked like.
I don't know how. I don't know.
Because like you're saying, it's like it's an opportunity for the trenches, right? Let me go line up, throw a couple elbows.
Literally, and that's what had to happen.
Get my hand on a few swatches and then flip them on eBay for like a quick 5x, 10x, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's across the board, because I don't know, it's tough out there. Like actually,
Yeah, I mean, they could have just like sold it online and like sent them to the house, right? The people ordering it, but no, they had to create this spectacle.
Pandemonium.
Yeah. Which I get what they were doing. Really, they did it for a marketing stunt, and it worked.
It's like Apple, right?
Yeah.
They do the same thing.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's the same thing, but because this was like, I don't know, kind of designed. Apple was like, I'm selling really good phones and everybody wants it. It's like, not everyone can have a phone on that day because we only made so many. It's like, it's just, it is.
Right. Yeah.
The swatch thing is different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fucking watch, dude.
Yeah.
It's just a watch. But yeah, there is something happening in combination with AI and like the sentiment, I guess, permeating through the air.
Where AI is definitely a big factor here.
Yeah, where people feel like the impending,
like hopelessness.
Right.
Remember, we were watching commencement speeches, and 3 of them were talking about AI, and all 3 were booed.
That's
and we're talking about Eric Schmidt, which was the CEO of Google.
Yeah, do you pull up a clip of it or something?
Oh, I don't know how I can find that.
Really? I bet you I could find it in like 2 seconds.
All right, let's race.
I don't know how to spell his name, though. Eric Schmidt. There it is. Wait, that's not it. Commencement. No, dude, you're gonna beat me. I think that's it.
Well, it's one of these videos, but it was like a montage, not a montage, but it was like 3 clips.
How is this not easy to find?
I think this is it. Oh, well, that's not it.
That might be it. That looks more like it. Okay, I guess that wasn't it. All right, fuck it.
Point is that there's 3 speeches, 3 of them mention AI, all 3 were booed, and that's an indicator of people feeling like they're hopeless against like this impending workforce.
Yeah, like they're trying to inspire, I guess, the next generation of like worker talent.
Yeah.
To really like lock in on AI, right? That's kind of what he said. It's like, this is a rocket ship and it's your, you need to hop on board.
Yeah.
Type energy, but they're like, no.
Yes.
We don't want to hop on board because we know what that really means. You just want us to like not resist this thing that gets you guys much more wildly rich.
That's right.
And at the same time, it's threatening and jeopardizing our, I guess, ability to participate in the labor force, right? It's like at least that's the optics of today. I don't know if that's actually reality. That's what's up for debate, right? It's like, is it even?
Yeah. Does AI actually benefit humanity, or does it benefit the few who actually build out the AI?
Right.
That's the debate.
Yeah. And if there's like a phase of disruption to like to get us from point A to point B. Meaning, like, there's going to be, to some degree, some sort of
pain,
suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the economic perspective, because I don't know, I guess because we've gotten to the point where like we have to race towards this goal, and we didn't factor in all the consequences like ahead of time.
Yeah.
Feels a lot like NAT and Bitcoin type scenarios. Like these are more examples of like society at scale just loving to like sweep real problems under the rug. I remember Andrew Yang talking about this stuff 9 years ago when we first started this podcast.
Yeah, I still have a math hat around here.
We need to bust that fucker out, dude.
Yeah.
It's like we understood the man's vision and pitch because it's like, yeah, he's right. And once because back then there was no evidence that AI was even really that big of a danger to society.
Yeah, his pitch was more about like tech is going to take over the planet way harder than it is right now. And we need to figure out ways where everybody can benefit from technology exponentially growing and benefiting everyone.
Yeah, but the big selling point, I guess, of his campaign was the UBI, right?
Yeah, that is like the stopgap to transition us through the pain to abundance.
Right. Exactly. So that was at least somebody proposing
It
a
was.
thing.
That is a solution. Now, is it the best or the? Yeah, is it the best one? I don't know.
Exactly, but it should have been enough of like a poke or prod
Yeah.
to get the conversation started, right? Like, you know, in the Bitcoin's case, yeah, at some point the subsidy crisis is going to be much more alarmingly real than what it is today. So here's NAT as a proposal of a solution to this problem. So is it the best one? Unknown.
We don't know.
But we're poking and prodding to get the conversation started and the brain juices flowing in that direction, so that we're not caught with our fucking pants down the way we are right now. With, you know, because we're here here where Andrew Yang predicted we would be 10 years ago.
Yep.
And it feels like our pants are down. We're fully flopping around out here. You know, fully exposed. And it doesn't seem like anybody has like a real solution in place.
I think what I was going to say was I think Andrew Yang probably just missed one part, and he didn't say a pandemic. He listed out all the things that are going to happen, like AI and all this stuff, technology, all this stuff, but he missed out on saying pandemic.
Well, and he couldn't have predicted that.
No, he couldn't. I remember watching one of his interviews after all this was like said and done. It was like, yeah, I missed the chance to say pandemic because I would have like
scared more people.
Well, I think it would have
given him like
more
Tom Lee juice.
Yeah, basically.
Some aura.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, he's once people start to rediscover the man, and that he was like spot on with his like warnings. Yeah. He's definitely gonna gain some new aura. What does he end up doing with that aura? I mean,
I don't know.
There's a new presidential campaign coming up soon.
I know he's got a podcast and he's like pretty consistently out there. I just don't know if he's gonna be like in the mix.
I'm pretty sure he's disillusioned with all this, you know.
Yeah.
I would be. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But the point is, it's, you know, we're there, right? So that is the feeling people are getting. Yeah, unemployment isn't at 20-30% today, but it feels like people are aware that it might be very soon. And like, especially kids entering, you know, they just spent all this money on loans to get their degrees.
Yeah, and it's still some degree of a debate because I hear Jensen Huang talking about that AI is going to require more human beings, right? If you lose your job against AI, that's because you don't know how to use AI, and the person that beats you is the guy who knows how to use AI,
right?
And so, and I understand what they're saying because if you look at throughout history, is like we've developed technologies that have eliminated jobs but created new ones and more, right? So they're saying that that's going to happen again, but I think really the inflection point is the robots. Because once you have robots, I mean, there's a live stream that's going on like 200 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Where 3 robots are just like flipping boxes on a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
For 200 hours straight.
Right.
And I think it's still going on right now.
It is. I just saw it this morning.
Yeah.
Way less viewers than it had, like close to 1 million viewers.
At 1.5 million, that's as high as I saw it. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
So anyway, there's 3 robots flipping these like packages for 200 hours straight, not complaining, not going to use the restroom. The only thing they're doing is they're stepping away for after their battery runs out to grab more battery.
Yeah,
to recharge.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then another one replaces them like a hot swap.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of jobs are absolutely going to get eliminated. And and what maybe the people who lose those jobs are the technicians that fix the robots. Like that could happen, but I don't think it's a 1-for-1 replacement.
Yeah. Yeah, so then okay, so again, because everything's up for debate and nothing is certain, nobody knows again the degree of disruption this is going to have from an economic perspective. We know at some point, you know, if the intent is to fully displace, you know, these types of jobs, like, you know, for sure, like truckers and different you know, transportation.
Yeah, they employ like millions of people.
Yeah, so like once that sector of the economy is like kind of nuked away, I forgot who said this recently. It might have been Andrew Yang actually. On a recent interview, that's his time horizon.
Yep. I totally agree.
Once the trucker industry is displaced, he thinks like that's whenever we see violence in the streets because like these people are He literally said because they're gun owners in most cases. It's like these are the people. These aren't white collar folk, you know. These are like blue collar, you know.
Yeah.
Guys hitting the road on a daily basis. Like they're gonna come out angry.
Yeah.
And they're gonna want to defend their livelihood, and that might cause like a real revolution. So.
Yeah.
He's not the only one to be saying shit like this either. Like.
And it's inevitable because we have cars that drive themselves, with a human, but we also have cars that drive themselves without any humans.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is going to transition to truckers and trucking and all that. And you're not going to need humans to be driving these things.
Yeah. So that's the goal.
Yes.
That's not up for debate. Like that's for sure the target.
Trucks that never blink, they never sleep, they never get tired. All they need is 2 hours of recharge time. And they're back in transportation.
So that's where the feeling that's just like out there in the atmosphere is. It's just people are becoming aware that this is like the intent behind big tech, and now government, like, you know, China and the United States are having like these meetings talking about how do we work together or whatever.
Yeah.
How do we align so that we can get there even quicker?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, and then people, then they come on stage as you're graduating. It's like, get on the ship, lads. And their fucking stock valuations are through the roof, and like they have this barrier to like getting in on these companies.
That's right.
You know, you need $1 million net worth to even position yourself and like be on the ship.
Yep.
But to like get on the ship whenever we IPO and dump on all your stupid faces. Like that's what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
How are they supposed to expect people to be okay with that? Like,
yeah. I agree.
And then they're up there like, huh? Why are they booing? It's like I doesn't compute.
Yeah.
Do they not know we're here to save them from? You know?
That is ultimately what's happening. If you look at that robot, just like turning those packages, like just imagine a human doing that. And humans have been doing that, but they spend all day as a human just doing that. And that's not a good
existence.
That's not a good existence. You're actually liberating the people from doing that job. Nobody wants to do that job. You shouldn't want to. Now, there are people that want to because they lack of other opportunities. They want that job, but
yeah, what they really want is to be able to
survive,
provide for their families and themselves and shit like that. That's really what they want. So that hell of an existence is what gives me that. Yeah,
that opportunity to figure it out.
So in most cases, we'll take that. We'll take on that task. But now you're telling me it's like
yes, it's not even available.
It's not even an option anymore. So therefore, you better come in and handle my family for me, right?
Or else.
Exactly. So like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There's a complete disregard for the middle ground between these two realities, right? And that's the real issue.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to solve because we were talking about UBI. It's like you got to figure out where that money comes from, and then how much is enough.
Yeah. How do you allocate? You know, based on what credentials?
So we were talking about this yesterday offline, and we were saying that I think one of the first things that need to happen is prices needs to start going down. Like instead of spending $300 a week on groceries, should be less than $100. Like I think once that starts happening, then things get a little bit more. You know, you create some breathing room.
For sure. Yeah, and like these autonomous transportation systems need to be so ubiquitous to the point where it becomes obviously irresponsible to even own a car, right? It's
yes.
Like, why am I subjecting myself to this $600 a month car note when I have a $100 a year subscription where I could just invoke transportation at will, right?
Yeah.
Shit like that.
Yeah,
like,
no maintenance, no insurance.
Yeah, now I'm starting to like I could breathe a little bit more. Now I don't want to wring Sam Altman's throat, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But right now I do. His neck seems very ringable, dude. Very frail looking man. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, the fallout of this is it's affecting our culture because it's affecting our psychology a bit.
Yeah, hence we have Pump Fun up there making $33 million a month. Polymarket,
that's
another gambling
casino
here.
Swatch,
yeah. $20 million a month for Polymarket. Grayscale, that is like a huge institution.
Even things like in the toy market, like Labubu's, and there's There's like those dumpling.
Yeah,
things.
dumpling things.
You open it up, and it's like if it's got glitter in it, you got the rare, and you could probably resell it on eBay. You made like
Yeah, I saw that video, and I thought the montage was a little long because almost everybody was just opening up these like glitter ones.
Everybody? Well, yeah, they got the hype.
Yeah, it was the montage, but I don't know. It just didn't feel as rare as like they were reacting.
Trust me, it's rare, dude. I've opened a lot of Lububus in my household. And not once did I find the rare, Or my daughter, not me. My daughter find the rare. I'm not over there unboxing Lububus. I'm not that degenerate, at least not yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, even the toy industry is picking up on this vibe, right? It's like, this is how you market. That's how you
generate revenue. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. So it's like systemic, right? This is part of it. Like, because reality is so hard to like survive in nowadays.
Yeah.
We got to find these other verticals of, ROI potential, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So long story short on this thing, we have a list of 25. Securitized at 2 million, Fidgetals at 2.7 million, MetaMask.
There another cards, collectibles.
Yeah, collectibles, Fidgetals. There's another one here called
Courtyard.
Courtyard. Yeah, here it is. 5 million a month.
Yeah, they have claw machines now for these Pokemon cards. Digital claw machines. Hopefully, you get a PSA 10 Charizard.
Yeah.
Throw your money in here now, right?
Yeah, gambling. Yeah. But what's the one thing you notice on this list?
Yeah, the lack of NFTs.
There's 0 NFT platforms on this list.
Yeah, that was the thing that stuck out to me too. It's like, damn, crypto is pretty hot. It's like, this is pretty cool. There's like a pretty long list here of very viable businesses in crypto, right?
Yeah, so we got stable coins, we have platform launch pads, we have DEX. We have DEXs. DEXs. We got wallets and Fidgetals. But so these are like very basic type projects here, but no NFTs. So then it's like we have our platform. We haven't launched yet, so we're not on the top 25, at least not yet.
Right. Yeah.
But we're thinking from a first principles perspective. It's like if you look at this, it's probably not a good idea to launch anything NFTs because it's very unlikely you're going to make any revenue.
Right.
Right. So I mean, the data suggests such, but then with a first principles perspective from a different angle, it's like NFTs are still a viable technology, and the problem with NFTs is the way they were launched, and that's the thesis behind NAT.FUN, is that we're launching NFTs in a completely different way, where the launch of an NFT basically starts at 0 market cap, and the community decides what that price is, and it's basically a free and fair launch.
Yeah, it's extracting all the wonderful components that make up the token launch economy, aka pump, and applying it to this now under existent asset class.
Yeah.
Right. It's just merging the two essentially.
Yeah.
In hopes of reinvigorating, the interest in producing again and creating again. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what got us natively interested in Web3, right? It's like once we discovered platforms like Decentraland and OpenSea and all these other different, ways to create things digitally. It's like, wow, this is very fascinating. Like,
yeah.
I think this is very powerful. The idea of leveraging like these on-chain rails to not just create things, but distribute them and then create these like nice incentive loops around them.
Yeah.
You could build whole different ecosystems that one day can maybe compete with, Roblox and other UGC products.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like a whole different business model of, or a whole different approach, I guess, at doing that outside of just, subscriptions or whatever Web2 does, right? So that's what's kept us like latched into this whole experiment, this whole way, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, somebody's got to attempt something here, right?
Yeah, so there's a problem where when NFTs launched in 2021, they were super successful. They were being compared to the iPhone. And the problem is that if you are one of these individuals, creators who launched an NFT collection, you would set a price, people would buy it up, 100% sold. And you would walk away with a few $1,000,000 as a creator or more. And then you're left with no incentives to kind of like continue doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's the underlying issue. That's why every NFT project is basically down 99+%.
Mm-hmm.
So with this new platform, it's more aligned. The creator does not have to purchase any of their own tokens. They don't have to purchase any of their own NFTs. You just launch a token, and any volume that occurs on the fungible token, or if it graduates volume on the NFTs through royalties, goes back to the creator.
Yeah.
So that the creator is aligned to grow with the community.
Right.
And the community doesn't get dumped on by the creator because the creator needs to pay bills or whatever, right?
Right.
And so the incentive mechanism is more about aligning the creators and the community together in a systemic way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what NAT.FUN does. And plus, it uses DMT.
Yeah.
Not the drug.
Yeah.
A substance.
Some other kind of
Substance, yeah.
interpretation of a drug, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that's again, more relief here.
Yeah.
It's like finally, once we launch, we're going to know for certain whether or not these things resonate, or like the market has a palate for this, whether or not we've done a good enough job of building a product around these core tenets that actually, hopefully we're going to be doing obviously marketing, but the best products kind of speak for themselves. Like Hyperliquid, they do zero marketing.
That's
but
right.
The product is so good that the natural users who are seeking a product like this, they flocked to it, and they became power users, and they became like the co-marketers of such, and that's where the big name is coming from, right? That's typically what you want to do, and it's really rare and hard to achieve, because like you're saying, you actually have to identify a root problem and build the right solution to fixing that problem. So that's, I guess, what you would say is first principles thinking. I don't know.
Yeah, I know you don't like that.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't like that, but yeah, it's just
it does sound pretentious. Like you don't like you don't know what first principles is. So I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, you don't even first principle, bro.
Yeah,
shit like that. It's like you're on second and third principles.
Yeah,
I don't know, but so again, massive relief. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens from here.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully the thesis is clear, right? So we've identified a problem with NFTs. We think we have a solution in the form of launching an NFT in a new way.
Yeah.
And then aligning the incentives between the creator and the community. That's unlike anything we've seen out there.
Yeah, there's actually multiple like theses here in play, right?
There is. Yeah, I was going to say that I consider this more like a scientific experiment, but the problem with a scientific experiment is you want to isolate one variable.
Yeah.
And then you want to test for that variable. But here we're testing multiple variables that we haven't.
It's true. We don't know which one's going to stick. It's like another thing that, that we're introducing that could, again, light of a new flame within the NFT ecosystem is the fact that, AI is here, and we need a way to increase not just market access, like that's what the Rails or NAT.FUN does. It's like creator access, right?
That's right.
Last cycle, I was not able to partake.
Yeah.
Because I had no creative ability.
Or technical ability.
Or any ability, right? I was just sidelined. The only ability I had was to speculate.
Yeah, to identify opportunities.
Yeah, I could buy one of these things, right? But I could never, inject myself into the creator mold. But now we can. And we've kind of focused on that, and that's another one of these core tenets that we're offering, and kind of it's a variable, right?
Yeah. So we have the NFT launch mechanism, the creator and community alignment. You're talking about AI. And so we have an AI tool embedded within the platform that allows anybody who can speak English to create stuff. So English is the new programming language of the world, and you could use English to create collections.
Yes. So, again, previously that would require me to understand these art editing tools.
Yeah.
I don't know. Name one.
Like Procreate, you mean? Or?
Yeah, like something like that.
Yeah.
understand the software. What else? Understand how to put together these like coding scripts. So
yeah, you'd have to put the script together. Otherwise, you'd have to draw all 10,000 images.
or however many you want.
Or
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, a tremendous amount of effort. I'd have to learn all these new things. Full stop in most cases. Right?
Yeah. You're not going to get a lot of creators if they have to learn all these tools.
Yeah. So now, like through this Vibe Studio tool that's on the platform, it's going to be in its alpha state once it's live.
Yes. Yeah.
But the goal is to continually iterate and improve on it, and we're going to need the max amount of feedback from you guys, anybody who uses it, for us to do a good job at that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's alpha stage. It's not. It takes it's gonna require a lot of effort to kind of figure out like the best implementation of the thing, but that's why we need you guys to go and like try to use it. So I was gonna say there's 3 variables there that we just mentioned. There's a 4th one, and then there's a 5th one.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of variables here. The 4th one is the fact that we're using along with the embedded agent or the embedded AI in the platform, is we're bringing in agents. Connect your agent to build your platform. So the question is, like, are agents going to be deploying tokens, creating content, helping you create content, and agents are going to be connected to the platform. So OpenClaw, Hermes, etc. You just connect to the platform and they can launch on your behalf. They can launch without you if you want them to, or they can help you build content.
Content meaning like
collections.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of different fun ways you can collab with your agent, right? And
yeah.
That'll probably be like a unique edge, I guess, to individual Vibers, those that are familiar with that process versus not. So we'll see. Yeah, it's kind of like another up in the air thing. Is like, should these agents that come to the platform on the behalf of some orchestrator, like, should they have their own individual identity as soon as they do?
Right.
So that's not going to be the case at launch, but it could be some feature we implement, down the road. It's like, as an agent is iterating, especially because the intent is to have like all this vibing being done in public on purpose, right?
Yeah.
For a very specific purpose, which is to provide or relay the right like information for the market participants to kind of digest, in order for them to therefore like signal to the creators whether or not they're on the right path or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's not through like a like system. It's literally through buying and selling the token.
Correct. Yeah. That is the best form of indications that you could possibly have. Yeah.
Like if you're sitting there vibing, or your agent's sitting there vibing, yeah, you think you got a good idea, but the market may not agree. Right.
Yes.
And
that's all that matters.
And that's that's I think is going to be like essential, and then now in the era of AI, because if everybody can create anything, it's like, how do you actually gauge what should be created, right?
That's right.
It's like, should we just be outpouring as much stuff as we can into the ether and then waiting to see what sticks, or should we do some sort of like a viability check or vibability check, whatever you want to call it, before you actually push something into full production, right? Because pushing something into production, it implies a lot of different secondary requirements, right? It's not just launching something. It's like, it's
got to have some traction.
Yeah, and then now you're responsible for promoting said thing, and there's a lot of activities involved in that. So you don't want to do that and expel that energy into something that doesn't even have market viability. Like, you don't even know if there's demand for this product.
Yeah, and if it doesn't have market viability, you have the ability to update your product.
Right, yeah.
So that it does have market viability.
Yeah, so one of the things we'll probably have to add down the road is like a chat feature. Because the reason why we didn't is because we went to all these other token launch platforms that do have them, and it's just like people talking nonsense.
Yeah, because there's no point. It's like when you're launching a shitter, what is there to discuss?
Just LFG.
Yeah.
Let's fucking
spam
go.
LFG, yeah.
And then like bots come in trying to like
it's like shill other tokens.
Yeah, and occasionally it's like I'm in Afghanistan. Can you send me $1?
Yeah.
Like I see a bunch of that. It's like, what the fuck? So it just seemed like a cesspool of like useless activity.
Yeah, it's pointless, really.
But if you factor in like our platform is designed to kind of like aggregate,
Foster feedback.
yeah, and like inspire creation.
Yeah.
A chat feed might make a lot more sense for the Vibe Studio. Right?
Yeah, so you would need to have some of the tokens in order to get access to the chat. And
yeah, true. Yeah, and therefore it's not just, you know, a squiggly line that goes up and down as your feedback source for whether or not my vibe is, you know.
Yeah, it's like, why does my number keep going down, guys? It's like, well, because your art sucks. It's like, okay. And then they're like, well, you should change this. And then you change it, and then the number go up.
Yeah.
And, you know, there you go.
You got alignment.
Yeah.
You got alignment to a community of holders. They agree on the direction of the thing. You've graduated or blocked out in the NAT.FUN world.
Yeah.
And therefore, like the people who were kind of like collaborating with you in a sense as you were vibing and they were speculating essentially. Now they are the recipients of what it is you've conjured up.
Yeah.
Right? They receive those UNATs, those NFTs.
Yeah, yeah. So what happens here, if a token graduates, the token holders receive the UNATs, right? The NFTs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean the story's done, right? No. That's like the beginning. That means it's a viable product.
Right.
Right. But it doesn't mean, it means there's going to be continual like updates and progress, and, you know, everyone wants the number to go up, but it takes effort. Right.
Right.
And so whatever the creator's building, it doesn't have to be an art project. It could be a game or anything else. And so the point is that the community is aligned with the creator to continue progress, right? Because the threshold is about 100K. Like, that's still micro caps.
Yeah.
Right? So there's still a huge opportunity to grow from there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where, like, the dynamics they shift a bit, right? In the previous legacy model, it's like once the distribution of NFTs happens, it's like, you know, the creator feels like, you know, less of an obligation.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my money, and you guys
got your NFTs.
You got your NFTs. You're free.
You guys figure it out. And we ran that script for years. And you know, so this is a whole new script. It's like, okay, NFTs are distributed, you know, and all of a sudden the platform has expanded my revenue receival rates significantly, right? Yeah. That means, okay, the job just began, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where the alignment shift happens. It's like, okay, now there's more expected of me, right?
That's right.
So, again, a lot of relief coming, dude.
Yeah. So we talked about agents as the fourth variable. The fifth one, which is the kind of like the hidden one, is really hidden and not hidden, is DMT. So DMT, we're exporting the thermodynamic properties of Bitcoin, and we are applying that into a different chain on Solana. And so every token is a non-arbitrary amount based on an element that a creator chooses. So the fungible token supply is a non-arbitrary amount, and the UNAT supply, or NFTs, is a non-arbitrary supply. And so that means that if that pattern on Bitcoin that you choose occurs again in the next block, that means there are more additional fungible tokens and additional UNATs.
Yeah.
And so the test here is, can you export this thermodynamic property onto the rails where it's a much better user experience? Because if you ever use Bitcoin, it's a terrible experience.
Yeah.
You have to wait too long, and sometimes, you know, the blocks don't mine in 10 minutes. Sometimes they mine in an hour.
Yep. I remember those days. I mean, it had its charm for like a minute.
There's a little bit of a charm to it, for sure. And I think if you understand the context of what you are acquiring when you're getting an ordinal,
right,
it's fully on Bitcoin, like nobody can take that away.
Yes.
Then it's okay to wait an hour. But when you're sort of used to, you know, sub-second finalities and, you know, speed, you know, it's just a different expectation that you have to have.
For sure. So I guess, can you talk on that a little bit? Like so the platform itself, the coin creation and launch process is all on Solana.
Yes.
These are Solana coins that get launched and then graduate to Meteora. But
yes,
again, like for the first time, whenever a token migrates through a bonding curve, it's actually not just signaling some liquidity injection to a DEX pool. It's signaling the creation and distribution of NFTs. But this is happening on 2 chains.
Correct.
Per the decision of the deployer. It can happen on Solana or on Bitcoin.
So every launch is a fungible token on Solana. And when you launch, you get to choose, do you want your NFTs to be on Solana, which, you could do that, or Bitcoin? Ordinals. And these are tap ordinals. So it's exactly what you would expect from the DMT ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's why the Bitcoin wallet that we support is the tap wallet.
Mm-hmm.
So the creator has the option. So maybe you have, you really like Bitcoin and you want your art to be on Bitcoin forever. You choose an ordinal, right? Because that has like, infinite time scale.
Yeah.
And so the what you would expect from that experience is that because it's an ordinal, it's on Bitcoin. It's on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can move these assets, but you got to wait the 10 minutes plus to move them around.
Right.
But
So the secondary market experience is different.
it's different, yes. So in the secondary market experience for ordinals, you're using Bitcoin to purchase these assets. But if you launch a Solana NFT, then you are using Solana to purchase those assets. And, those are sub-second, transactions. Over here, they're 10 minutes to an hour transactions.
Interesting. So the difference is going to be like, from the NFT gallery, because this project is ordinals based, I hit the buy or add it to my cart and I buy. I might see like a wheel spinning for
10 minutes to an hour. Yeah.
Until then, I know for sure I have, fulfilled this transaction.
Yeah.
Because that's the nature of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, so we made some upgrades. So LIFO released like a new way to do inscriptions that prevent from sniping on Bitcoin.
Okay.
And so we've implemented that. So that means that as soon as you purchase these secondary asset on NAT.FUN, there's no way anybody can snipe that on Bitcoin, which used to be a problem way back in the day in ordinals. But the guy LIFO ended up figuring something out.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah.
In all of his endeavors.
Yeah, he's an OG ordinal guy.
Yeah,
and he's a builder, and he's done something here.
He's helping.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. So another expectation shift, I guess. It's not just on the collector or trading experience; it's on the creator side as well, right? Like if you're doing an ordinal collection, there's a different cost to like the art uploading on chain, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to Solana. Like how drastic of a difference is that?
How drastic of a for the art upload?
Yeah, because one's going to Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and the other is going to Arweave.
Yeah, so when you develop a collection, you're talking about developing code, right? That's why we were talking about AI and like developing this this code that generates these individual assets. And so when it comes to Bitcoin, you are taking that code and you're putting that code directly onto Bitcoin. And so that has a cost, right? You're paying per kilobyte on Bitcoin. And so you could develop code that points to different image layers where each layer has to also be inscribed onto Bitcoin. So that has additional costs, right? So you could do that, but the costs become higher. However, you are paying that cost so that it's forever on Bitcoin, and nothing can really stop that.
Yeah.
But for Solana, it's completely different. So the output of the script is what gets uploaded to Arweave. Mm-hmm. And Arweave has a kind of interesting properties. When you use it, it's there for 200 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that is kind of what you're paying for. So that has a cost, but it's significantly less than Bitcoin.
Yeah. So what else? What other tidbits? So that doesn't disrupt the DMT aspect in any way, even though like these collections are being stored on Solana or Solana infrastructure, Arweave or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the non-arbitrary nature of how these things are produced, it's still rooted and anchored to Bitcoin.
Correct.
In all cases, right?
Yeah, so you would think that there's a bunch of scam projects on Ethereum using DMT and all that stuff. And they're using the native chain block propagation for DMT, which you're free to do.
It's interesting.
It's totally fine. The problem with that is that it doesn't have the thermodynamic properties of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's network is extremely large. It's comparable to the energy consumption of small countries. And the idea is that it's supposed to grow, right? If you want a higher security in Bitcoin, you need to consume more energy, right? So my projection for the future of Bitcoin is that it consumes more energy, therefore it's more secure, and therefore it's more valuable. So if that is the case, then you should tie digital asset production to Bitcoin, which is its own digital asset substrate layer.
Right.
And so we're not tying anything to Solana blockchain or Ethereum blockchain or anything. It's all Bitcoin. We're just pointing to the Bitcoin blockchain and we're saying we're going to launch Solana NFTs and Solana,
Right.
fungible tokens.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's being preserved there is that source of truth on Bitcoin, right? That can't be disrupted. It can't be tampered with, because if it does, then all of Bitcoin is in jeopardy, and then all of crypto is in jeopardy, right?
Yeah.
Which is why it serves as this like almost physics-like, anchor to digital reality, right?
Yeah.
So that's the old. That's the fifth.
Ethereum, Solana, they don't have those properties.
Correct.
They're not proof of work chains. It's just not. It's something else. There's no digital matter over there. It's just software ultimately,
which is fine.
Which is fine.
Which is why you can build killer apps on these things.
Which is why we're on Solana. I mean,
yeah,
there's good reasons to be on Solana. Digital matter is not one of them.
Correct.
Right. So
we think this is cool.
So that's a thesis. We think this is cool.
Yeah.
Maybe others will think it's cool.
And that's, in my mind, it's like, damn, this is cool for like 2 years now. Now, we had a good run, year one to year 1.5, where others people signal to us like that we think this is cool too, right? Nat Cats, the Royals, Nat token itself, and just hundreds of other DMT assets that were created, and whatever. So there's some evidence that we're not alone.
Sure.
But we haven't tested that to this scale, right? We understand like the crypto market is much bigger than this little ordinals community that we find ourselves in.
I would say like maybe 10 to 50 times bigger on Solana.
Correct. Yeah, but it makes more sense. Like a Bitcoin native demographic, which us ordinals people are, we would find these things palatable and like interesting. These things we're talking about when we're describing DMT.
100%. I mean, it's like DMT is pretty cool, right? Those of you who agree. And it's like, well, what if you could improve the experience of DMT? So let's just put those assets on Solana, pointing to Bitcoin substrate, and like let's see if people care.
Yeah, let's see if those people outside our little bubble think that this is cool too. Like that is the biggest, I think, test.
Yeah.
In my mind, whether or not like this whole, whatever you want to call it, a philosophy, methodology, an approach, whatever DMT is to you, like, is it receivable across the board? Like, well, it's that I struggle with in my own mind.
Well,
making a projection or prediction.
Sure. I agree. I would say that we do a lot of research in crypto, and we look around, and there's not a whole lot of like new developments, new primitives, new stuff. And we feel like this will do well because it is something new. Mm-hmm. And so I would lean on this doing pretty well because of that.
Yeah, that is probably like, if we were to like, extract one core lesson that we've learned on this channel since 2019, all the crypto things that we've analyzed and, made assessments about, the ones that have done the best are the ones that introduce some new vertical or primitive or something. Yeah. Some new process, some new method of creation, some new technology, something that didn't exist beforehand, and it has to flip some triggers in your brain and perceptions that, crypto has a new path, right? Yeah. So based on that experience of us, discovering these things in real time and then talking about them on the channel, with that context, all of this we just described 100% fits that description. Right? Yeah. So, biases aside, You know,
Yeah, objectively speaking, it should do well.
Yeah, like if we found this thing organically and someone else did it, we would be like, holy shit, this is really interesting. The same way when we found ordinals, we were like, holy shit.
Yes.
This is a very unique and interesting approach to tokenizing things on Bitcoin.
Yes.
Let's go deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what people will find is that once they get into it, they'll see the surface level is like, oh, this is pump clone. It's like, wait a minute, there's NFTs. It's like, wait a minute, they're talking about this DMT thing.
Yeah, it's true.
And then wait a minute, this Bitcoin, and it's like, the rabbit hole just goes deeper and deeper, and then that's how you really capture an audience, is that there's some depth here.
Yeah, agreed. So to us, that's what we look for. So we're gonna find out here in a few hours, you know, whether or not all these things are true. So
yeah,
looking forward to that.
All right, so that's our predictions. Yeah, we should be launching, I guess, I don't know, a few hours like you're saying, and we'll find out. So we'll probably come back with another video on Monday or something, and we'll do like a post-mortem or a play-by-play breakdown.
Jesus. The anxiety, the butterflies are back. God damn it.
But yeah, if you guys have any questions on NAT.FUN, or you're a creator and you want to see what the platform is about, definitely hit us up. Join our Discord. We're in there 24/7. And hit us up with questions. I appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.